Hi everyone. Hello, hello. We're gonna start in a few minutes. Okay, just gonna grab a tissue. I'm a bit, I have a cold. And welcome everyone, every single one of you. And by single one, I mean exactly one. The goal for today is that we're gonna hopefully in an easier way than last time, we're gonna use the Gephi toolkit to handle the graph in Gephi and make stuff with it, and especially extract textual attributes to understand them better. So let's go directly in the heart of the topic. Let me check what you see. Well, my screen sharing is not as it should, so I think the issue is this one. Yeah. I have not. Let me change that. Yeah, great. Okay, so what you see here is a network I have created right before I started the session. I just used Mathieu Tote. Oops. I have used the Twitter streaming importer by Mathieu Tote, which is a plugin in Gephi that allows you to collect tweets live, as they are being published by users. And it does not just collect a list of tweets, it organizes them in networks. So which tweets did I collect? I used Qatar as a keyword, Qatar. So it collected tweets that mentioned this keyword, and I'm switching to the data laboratory. It created a network where the nodes are individuals, and I suppose these are the authors of the tweet that mentioned Qatar. So these are the nodes, and I suppose in the nodes you also find the users that are mentioned in the tweets. And two users are connected if a user mentions another one. I might be wrong. Mathieu, if you hear us, please correct me. But I would assume that we have a network where the user that publishes the tweet is connected to the user which is mentioned in the tweet. That's the kind of network we have. So why did I collect this network instead of reusing Les Miserables, which is a classic network? The reason is that we have a description column or attribute in the nodes, and this description for each node, this is the Twitter biography of the user. So how can we get the biography of, yeah, that's what I supposed. I suppose we have just the biography of the author of the tweet, not the biography of the user mentioned in the tweet. So not a perfect use case, but in any case, we still have some text in this column. Still useful. So I have exported this. I have exported this network in my Twitch stream folder. Let me find it for you. Yeah. I have exported this network as Qatar user network.gexf, and that's the network we're gonna open in the plugin we are developing and explore in this plugin. So I'm just copying this file here, and I'm gonna paste it in the root folder of our plugin, which is there. Yes, you see it clearly. So I'm pasting there. Instead of using Miserable Extended, which was a nice network, but without a description, without a textual attribute. So I'm going to delete this one. We don't need it. That's the one we're going to use. So I'm copying the name of the file because we're going to paste it in the code. Okay, opening NetBeans now, which is the program we use to edit our code. If you remember, it takes ages to open NetBeans. Not because NetBeans is slow, but OBS, which I use to stream, tends to slow everything down. So I have some coffee. Wow, NetBeans opens fast. Okay, NetBeans has opened. Let me put it in the right window. So NetBeans is there. I'm gonna open the project we are working on for the last few weeks. Not this one. Twitch, where is Twitch? That's a good question. Where is it? It's there. And I'm gonna open our Gephi plugins project right there. So opening it. What is this Zoom doing? Can't remember. Anyway, it's opening, I suppose, pretty slow, but yeah, it's coming. As I'm sick, I've brought some chocolate. The best medicine. Okay. So I'm opening the plugin. Wow, super slow. Come on. So within these plugins, we have just one plugin, which is this one. I double click on it to open it. Super slow. I suppose it's a big no-no to eat while you are streaming, but I dare to do it. Okay, the plugin is opening and there is a kind of red bulb alert. We'll see. Where is the problem? There is no problem. How do I know there is no problem? Because there are no light bulbs in the margin. So I suppose what we see, oh, see, there is one here. It complains that, what does it, why is it complaining? Unreported exception. Yeah, okay, I understand. So I'm gonna go back to this file. And as you see, this file throws an exception. So if there is any problem opening the network file, the program is gonna, write an error. That's what this thing says. And when this file here, oops, not super, yeah, better. When this file here can throw an exception, like here, then the file here, the file here that actually, calls this other file, it has to, it's a kind of cascading execution. If this thing here can throw an exception, then the file that executes that should itself throw an exception. So it should have something that says, throws exception. So I suppose it's going to just do it for us. If we click there, I just do that, and it writes the necessary statement for us. And I suppose if I save the file now, the error will disappear. Except if there's another one, but no. You see the light bulb has disappeared. Okay, we can go back to where we were. I was saying that we were using, last time, we were using the Les Miserables extended network, and this time we want to use the Qatar. So I'm just changing the name there. Come on. Okay, so it's going to open the Qatar file I just created. And just to follow what we did last week, we realized that you can't open the file directly. You need to read the contents of the file as a string. So the string is here. And this is this string that gets read and imported there. So why do we have weird errors there? Yeah, I wouldn't care too much. So let's see, I'm gonna run this file and let's see if it should spit out, how many nodes do we have and how many edges do we have. So doing that now, running the file. I'm just looking at the bottom where we have the results. Great. So we have 483 nodes and a bit less than 600 edges. How were these things written? Simply because we have, so just to let you understand, because that's super important. Once we have done this really boring and awful steps that consist in opening and importing a graph or a network, we end up with this important line. So there is an object called a graph controller, and we can get a graph model from it, which is stored in this GM object. And once we have a graph model, what is a graph model? It's basically the network plus plenty of other informations and methods around it. So what you can, let me show you everything that we have in this object. So basically, all these things you can get from, let me show you better. Once you have a graph model, this is the menu of the methods you can apply to it. So you can, let me find interesting stuff. You can get the list of the attributes of the edges. You can have, the index of the edges. I've never used that. You can get the edge types. You can get the directed graph, which is contained in this object. You can create nodes and edges with this factory method, so you can add new nodes and edges. The most classic one is get graph. You can obtain the graph within this object and start using it. So that's the one we're going to use, get graph. If you have a dynamic graph, a graph with timestamps, you can have information on that. Many things. But in our case, what we need at the moment is just a graph. So, get graph, nothing fancy. get graph. And when I do that, it's not, the graph is not stored anywhere. So NetBeans provide a very convenient method. Oh, you don't see it. Let me put that in view. You know, NetBeans is useful because when you say get graph, of course you should create an object where the graph is going to be stored. But if you're lazy, you just click on the light bulb and it says, would you like to assign a return value to the variable you have created? And the answer is yes. So, you know, it creates for you this, this thing here. So I could have typed it myself, but it does it for you. And once you have the graph, well, let me show you the types of methods you can apply. So you have this graph variable. What can you do with it? So you can add edges to it, or nodes, or a single edge, a single node. You can remove everything from it, or only removing the edges. You can check, is the graph containing a specific edge or a specific node? And it's going to return, a true false value. You can get the attributes. You can get a specific edge. The list of the methods is very long. You can get the neighbors of a node. So you have a node, it's connected to other nodes. Well, it's going to give you the list of all the nodes it's connected to. You can know how many nodes do you have in your graph. You can get all the nodes. So that's the one we're going to love using. So many things. And that's why I love Java. That's why I love Gephi. I'm like, wow, I can use all of that, and it's going to be executed in not even a millisecond. It's going to be executed in a snap, really. So what we did right below is simply to print, there the number of nodes and edges. So here I don't have to do gm.getGraph because I've already done it there, and I have stored the graph there. So I can simply use the graph, like that. It's more, it's like cleaner. Okay, so that was just an appetizer. So now let's go really into the topic for today. What do we want to do? We want to get the textual attributes of the nodes. So I suppose we should get, I don't know exactly. Maybe we should get the column that we are interested in. So let me switch back to Gephi. If you remember, yeah, the column we are interested in is this one, description. This is the column that contains the text we want to analyze. Its name is, it's helpful, it's the tooltip shows the name, column ID description. So that's the one we want. Maybe if I do graph model, oh, you don't see it, sorry. So what I did is, I'm just testing stuff. I'm just looking at the menu for the graph model. What do we have? I never used it, but let's try and get node table, because maybe it's a table of the attributes of the nodes. We're gonna see that. I just look at the column, I look at the methods that are in this node table, so I can add new columns. That's not what I want. Yeah, exactly get column by name, and I have the name. It's called description. So I just typed enter, and it has written in the code the name of the method that I was highlighting in the menu. So in Java, you always finish your statements with a semicolon. So that's what I do. And as I said before, I've just created a column, not created, but I have retrieved the description column, but I have stored it nowhere. I have retrieved it, and if I just leave this statement like that, the column is not going to be stored anywhere. I have retrieved it and immediately left it go away. But NetBeans offers us to click there and assign the column in a new variable. Exactly, except we don't want to call it column. We're going to call it description attribute. That's the attribute of the node that is about descriptions. Okay, we have this column. Let's see what we can do with it. I think we can do nothing with it, but I just want to. So as usual, I just type the variable's name, I add a dot, and NetBeans shows me a menu of the actions I can take on it. Oh, does it exist? Yeah, default value, estimator. I never knew what an estimator was. Get ID, get origin, get data, get is. Okay, that's boring. So that's what I suspected. It's not immediately useful. It's going to be useful when we want to access the attribute from a node. So we're going to loop through the nodes and fetch their description attribute. So where do we get? So we had a graph there, right? So we're going to get the nodes from it. Graph, get nodes. That's not super complicated. Get nodes. As usual, I leave NetBeans to fill in. And that's useful because, I was not really, I couldn't remember that this method was returning an object, which is called node iterable. I just didn't know it by heart. So thanks to NetBeans, I don't really have to care about that. So these are the nodes. So depending on which programming language you are familiar with, but it's basically it's not a list, it's not a set, it's not a dictionary. It's a collection of nodes. So what can you do with it? We can iterate on it, or we can turn it into an array, but just need to iterate on it, I suppose. So iterator. And again, I leave NetBeans to fill in that. Iterator, I'm not going to call it iterator because it's like, let's be super specific. Iterator on nodes. And then there is a very nice shortcut in NetBeans. You just type while it, and then the tab key on the keyboard, and it auto completes that. You just type while it for iterator, and it writes these 3 lines of code that I don't know if it's clear, but as long as the iterator has a node to iterate on, as long as it has not finished iterating, do something with the next node, basically. So that's fine. What do we want to do? We want to fetch the description attribute of the node. So maybe it's time now to realize, where do we want to store where do we want to store the textual attributes. At the moment, we're just going to do a list of them. Descriptions. So in Java, I'm going to explain to you what I'm doing here. List and array list are not immediately recognized by Java. You just need to do the import. So what I just did here is using NetBeans to add at the top of my file the list object and the array list object. So I'm just creating a list which I call descriptions, and this list in Java, you don't have lists of objects and strings and numbers all at once. It has to be one type of object. So I say that it's going to be a list of string, which is the programmatic way to say text. And so why do I need to say again new array list? Because you have different types of lists. To be honest, so a list like an array, but there is other types of lists like a linked list. But you know, I don't need a linked list, I just need an array list. But that's the reason why you kind of type again this thing here. Okay, so this thing is empty at the moment, this list. You know, we have just created it. But each time we're gonna iterate on the nodes, the 400 plus, oh, we have the information at the bottom. We're going to iterate on the 483 nodes, and for each of them, we're going to take their descriptions and add it to the list. So we're not going to call it next, we're going to call it a node. And node, what can we do with it? Oops, let me scroll up a bit. What can we do on nodes with Gephi? Well, so many things. We can add a timestamp or an interval. We can change the color of the node. We can, as you see, that's what we need. We need to get the attribute, but we could also set, or can remove attributes, but we could also set the value of an attribute. So changing the value of an attribute. And so we can change, look at that, we can change the position of the node as well. That's what the plugin, the layout plugins, you know, that move the nodes around, that's the methods they use. Well, actually, this is where you would set the things. But we just need get attribute. And this one here, because we have the column is, you know, is there. So let's go. Get attribute. Oh, it has NetBeans has auto-completed. You know, it has guessed that if we need a column, well, a column was created just above. So it has guessed that that's the one we want to fetch. Good catch, NetBeans, up. So as usual, we have gotten the attribute, but we have stored it nowhere. So we just leverage NetBeans help to store it somewhere. But as you see, NetBeans couldn't guess the type of the attribute. Is it an attribute that stores strings or numbers or floats or whatever? So it's a string. But NetBeans says, well, it's not a string, it's an object, because we have to force NetBeans to basically make it a string. So that's the sense of that. If you don't put that, it retrieves an object. But we have to, I think the proper term is cast. We have to cast it as a string. Because that's the subtype, I suppose, or that's the type of the attribute. And once we have the, well, let's not call it attribute, let's call it this description for one node, we can add it to the list that we have above, you know, the list of descriptions. So it's super easy, descriptions, add. Maybe you're curious to know what we can do with lists. Well, we can iterate on them, we can check if they contain something, we can add stuff, we can do parallel. Is it? No, no, not exactly. Well, we can do classic stuff on lists, but we just want to add stuff there. So add, no, not this one, NetBeans. We just want to add this one here. Yeah, fine. So just that, let's do a quick check. So again, to print stuff in the console, you know, the thing we have at the bottom here, to print stuff, we could write system out print line, but that's awful. So in NetBeans, you just type SOUT tab, and it writes this long, horrible line of code for you. And so we're gonna print, you know, how many descriptions do we have? So we're gonna, well, write it like number of nodes that have a description, and plus, well, the size of the list, you know, how many size. If we have added 3 descriptions to the list should be 3, should have a length of 3. The only issue is that if the description is empty, you know, it's like there is a description, but it's like 0 space, 0 characters. It's going to be added to the list, but for us it doesn't count really. So I would prefer to add a condition if this thing is not null, you know, is not absent, and it's not empty. Blank is even better, I suppose. So if it's not absent and not blank, empty, then add it to the list. You know, that's better. Oh, and the thing, so let's check that. I'm gonna, you know, without typing anything, I'm gonna just, I don't know if you saw that, I've just look at these lines there. You know, they are not properly aligned, these lines, because the opening curly bracket there is finished there, and it's not really easy to read, right? So in NetBeans, you can, anytime when you are working on a file, you type simultaneously, and that sounds a bit complicated, but for me it's just a reflex now. You type Alt-Shift-F, F for formatting, Alt-Shift-F, but honestly at the end it's just a reflex, and it just indents and spaces the file as it should. So I've done it, and you see now that the opening curly bracket there nicely closes there. You know, it's well aligned with the if statement, and I just do that without thinking, and it just makes your code organized and easy to work with. So yeah, so I'm gonna run the file and we'll see how many nodes have descriptions. I hopefully run the file, and let's have a look at the bottom. Oh, that's so slow. So it doesn't mean that the code takes ages to run, right? It's just that it takes a huge time to launch. And please don't take it as it's not Java that does that. It's just me running OBS on the stream. Java is super fast to launch, actually. But not when you stream with a super heavy software like OBS that takes all the resources. Okay, so we have 483 nodes, and actually 411 of them have a description. Funny, I thought there were less. Let me check. I mean, I'm not going to count, right? But I thought there were like... I'm going to eyeball the thing. Okay, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I had the wrong impression. Okay, so now we have all the textual attributes in our list. So now is the time to do something a bit less simple. Where are we? Sorry. Okay, time to, stop. So just to be transparent about what I have in mind, what we would really need at this step is language detection. Because if you look at the Gephi file, why don't you see? Yeah. If you look at the descriptions, we have descriptions in many different languages. Actually, we have plenty of descriptions that are just symbols, but we have Arabic, we have English there, we have Spanish there. So, doing text analysis, and we're going to count the most frequent words. What would make the most sense is to start by, I would say at least, by distinguishing languages, I would say. But I can't remember where I have put the usual library I use for that. So we're gonna not use that at first. What we're gonna use instead is, so I'm hesitating because there is the easy way and the proper way. The easy way would be to just, split at white spaces. So if you have like I love chocolate, you split at the white spaces and you have I love chocolate because they are separated by spaces. So if you split, you have these 3 words. Hop, your sentence got transformed into 3 words. So we could do that, and that would take 2 lines of code. But I have developed for another project of sentiment analysis, I have developed a method that is more accurate. For example, when you have, I have a video on that if you want. It's on sentiment analysis from the inside. You can have a look at it. But just to summarize, you have emojis, you have punctuation signs that are being used as emoticons. You have many situations where splitting just on the white space is not gonna be super rigorous. So I will instead, I'm gonna use the tokenizer, that's the proper term, that I have created for this other project. So I'm going to open it. It's all on GitHub, free and completely free to use. I just have to find it. Well, I'm going to go through. Yeah, it's there. So it's in functions, Yumigan family. So, well, since we're there, we're going to use two things. The tokenizer, then we're going to detect n-grams, and the model is basically the project where we have the definitions of the data structure we need. Is that all? Well, maybe the limitizer, but no. Oh, and the stop words. Yeah, stop words. Stop words are these really annoying words, but since we didn't detect the language yet, I should. Anyway, let's go with simple stuff. So I'm opening in NetBeans these these libraries. And I'm going to import it in our project. They are super, by the way, they are great libraries. They are super small. They don't have dependencies themselves, so they are standalone. You know, look at the one on the model. You see the POM file. You should know by now what is a POM file. It's just the file that describes the project and its dependencies. Well, that's the POM file of my model. You know, it's empty. So when you import it, you know for sure that you don't import some bloatware. So you make a model. So I'm just going to add it. Oh, I think NetBeans provides an easy way to import it. I would just click on dependencies, right, add dependency from an open project, and yes, I think I can just select the three. Oh no, okay, just one at a time. Okay, model. And now you should see in the POM file of our plugin, I suppose the model has been added. I hope so. Yes, right there. Well, maybe I can do it by hand now. I'm just gonna copy paste that. And it's not the model we want. It's the, what's the name? It's the n-gram operations, so n-gram ops. And the last one we want, oops, you don't see it, is the tokenizer. Great. Yeah, should be fine, right? Why is it complaining there? I suppose, oh yeah, I didn't close the previous tag. You know, I opened dependency there and I didn't close dependency there. So, okay, so I have imported in the plugin these three things and I have to remember how to use them. So the way to remember is just to, I'm gonna open the tokenizer. I think I have an example in it. Where is it? It's there. So in the tokenizer, I mean, super simple, right? But it's as easy as this thing, I suppose. Yeah. So I'm just copying these lines, and even if you don't see it, I'm coming back to the code of our plugin. I'm pasting these lines. NetBeans very helpfully tells us if you use these lines, you should import all of that. And I'm like, yeah, thank you very much. So I'm just clicking on OK. And now it just complains that there is no text variable. And yes, that's true. The reason is that the text is should I I mean, we'll do some, it's not maybe the most clever thing, but we're going to iterate through all the descriptions that we have stored in the list, you know, in this list there. So okay, so these are the text fragments, as I call them. It's not super nice, but you know, I love chocolate. This sentence, when you chunk it into I love chocolate, I say that I love chocolate are text fragments. Why don't I just use the term word? You know, I love chocolate, 3 words. It's because you can have emojis as well, and punctuation signs and blank spaces. All of that are not words, they are text fragments. So that's why I use this horrible term. So for each description, I'm not sure I can use the, for each description in the list of descriptions. So this, I hope you understand that, because it's pretty common in programming languages. It's when you loop through a collection of items. So for each of these descriptions, so this thing doesn't need to be, these things need to be declared just once, so I'm going to put them before the loop. So for each of these things, do that for one, find the text fragments for one description and apply it not to text but to the description that we are looping on, and then simply add, I mean, take the text fragments for the whole network and add the ones we have found for the description we were looping on. That's it. And just for the sake of understanding what's going on, we can add a print statement in the end to count number of text fragments. It's ugly, but it works. Number of text fragments in the descriptions, and we're going to have a ton of them because it counts every white space and punctuation signs and words. That's a lot, I would expect. Yeah, quite many of them, but you're going to see it's pretty fast. I mean, it's super fast. Why? Oh, so it doesn't, we don't need that, I suppose, this statement. I'm just going to remove it. Okay. Oops, you don't see the console. Oh, yes, that's me. No worries. Okay, 12,000 text fragments. Yes. I had left a print statement in my tokenizer, so I'm going to remove it. Yeah, that's really okay. Okay, let me rerun it. We shouldn't see this ugly stuff now. Okay, 12,229 text fragments. So now we can get fancy and we can neglect So let's look at the model, just to look at what kind of text fragments do we have, because I can't really remember. So let's have a look there. Do you see it there? So that's the model. And yeah, I have this thing here, kinds of text fragments. So we have terms, n-grams, onomatopoeias, like ah, oh, wow, text-to-speak, which is like lol and stuff, emoticon in ASCII, white space, emojis, punctuation, question. I'm not too short. I'm not even sure I use this one. But what we want is only the terms, the n-grams, the onomatopoeias. Why not? Well, maybe we want everything except for white spaces and punctuation, right? So I would take that. So let's try to remember white space, white underscore space, and punctuation. So let's go back to our code. I would do something like that. We don't want to add all text fragments. We want to add them if they are not white space or punctuation. So for the text fragment, for each text fragment, like I'm going to call it one text fragment. For each text fragment that we have found in the description, if one text fragment, so what do we have here? Get type, yeah. So if it is not type of text fragment, oops, not sure I can do that, but maybe I can. So if it's not a white space and it is not a punctuation sign, or you can't see it, it's true on the right, maybe if I do that, yeah. Punctuation sign, punctuation. So if these two conditions are met, then only add the text fragment to the list. Then only text fragment, add the text fragment. Okay, good. I'm just removing some white spaces, some blank lines. So count. So we were last time we were at 12,000 text fragments. So now I'm just launching. Well, you can see I'm relaunching the thing. I suppose we're going to be like much lower, like 3,000, I would say. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, 5,700 text fragments, which are not white spaces and which are not punctuation signs. But we have the great stuff is that we have still preserved emojis and onomatopoeias and punctuation signs when they are combined into into an emoji, like the smiley sign with the parentheses and stuff. We have preserved all of that, but we have gotten rid of, if you can say so, of the non-interesting parts. Yeah, and then I suppose we're going to just count them. to see which ones are the most frequent. But I'm gonna leave that for next time because I must leave. My younger child has their Christmas party in their kindergarten, so I'm gonna leave it at 4 p.m. sharp, and we can do that because in any case we have not been blocked or slowed down in any way, contrary to the past few sessions. So we achieved quite a lot in just how many lines of code? So today we have written, 25 lines of codes, and we have tokenized we have retrieved the description of our nodes, and we have tokenized these descriptions in a neat way, not just doing split on white space. So that's pretty okay. Next time we're gonna count and see which words are the most frequent, so that we can then display it on the panel. Great. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And well, I don't know if I'm going to stream next week because I'm going to be working not where I work usually, but I'm going to have still a good broadband connection, so why not? We'll see. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to post it as a replay on YouTube, and now I'm going to just push our changes to GitHub, as as it is important to document what we do. Okay, see you next time. Thank you. that's the most important one. And I suppose that's it. Yeah. Ta-da! Thank you, Veronica. That was a much better session today, and hopefully that's how it's gonna roll now. Now that the setup is mostly finished. Have a good day. See you next week.